Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Planning Prerogative. We are your wedding gurus. I am Michelle.
And I'm Christina.
Today we're going to talk to you about some of the most commonly forgotten details on the day of your wedding. Let's get to it. Okay, one of the main things people forget day of wedding, and it's really, really important that you don't, is to eat.
Major pet peeve of mine, I always make sure that the bridal party remembers to eat, especially the bride, because ladies, you're starting to get ready at like 7 a.m. No, hopefully not that early, but a lot of times you can start getting ready at 8, 9 in the morning, hair, makeup, and you are sitting in that chair until like in that room getting ready till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's really important that you wake up and you have something to eat for breakfast. Definitely something light, but something fulfilling. So, brides try to stay away from like the breads, but you know, fruits are really good, or trying to think, I mean, obviously coffee, people get coffee, but
we always get our brides, usually it's like Panera or something.
Like a Panera or something.
We get them something, and you want to make sure you're eating in the morning, and you got to make sure your bridesmaids and groomsmen, especially like the guys, they tend to drink a lot during the day of wedding, when they're getting ready, when they're hanging out, they don't have as much to do to get ready, so they're usually done and hanging out, waiting for, wedding time.
Yeah, but the great thing about guys is usually they have a lot of time to like go out to eat. We just have to make sure we put it in the itinerary. So like as wedding planners, we create a wedding party itinerary, and a lot of times it says like we build in a brunch or a lunch for the guys. Usually it's like a brunch where they can go eat something if they go on a golfing trip, something like that.
I know, they have time to just like hang out during the day.
Yeah, it takes like 20 minutes. I think I have one groom this year that has to get his hair done. Other than that, they don't take a lot of time. So we just make sure we build it into the itinerary, make sure they eat. But the ladies, like, you're really stagnant in one spot for so long, and you don't want other people to have to worry about, going and getting food, or what are you going to get. So a lot of times we have brides or wedding party put in an order, we'll pick it up, we'll drop it off. A lot of times people will also deliver depending on where you're getting ready. Mm-hmm. If it's an Airbnb, you can have stuff stored there that you can pull out the next day. So,
or if you're getting ready at a venue, that sometimes the venue can provide food, you just got to make sure you put an order for it. Yeah. We also make sure there's food at the venue for the bridal party, because once the bridal party gets there, like even before the ceremony and even after the ceremony, you're taking pictures and stuff. You want to have like food, because cocktail hour is going on. You guys are usually not there because you're taking pictures and stuff. So we want to make sure that you have snacks and stuff. So if you don't have a wedding planner who can coordinate that for you, make sure that you keep that as a number one important thing to do, to eat. Okay, so following up with food, we're going to tell you to drink water.
Definitely want to stay hydrated. We as planners even drive around and bring bottles of water in our vehicles all day. We just make sure that we have that. Sometimes we even find vendors ask it, like they'll come for setup and forget to bring water, and they're like, do we have any water? And so many venues don't provide that, and the caterers and bartenders, all of that doesn't arrive until later. So that's not there. But even like days before your wedding, and that's an item actually in our checklist to remind you to start hydrating yourself. That definitely helps, and leading up, it's such a long day. You're going to be drinking alcohol. Hydrating will help your skin, just stay hydrated.
You want to stay hydrated. You want to make sure the bridal party stays hydrated, especially if you're getting married outside in summer. You don't want anyone collapsing or passing out at your wedding. But also, we definitely like days prior when you're getting like prepped and stuff, drinking water and keeping yourself really fully hydrated will help, with that glow on your skin, and just keep the plumpness going. And you want to make sure, especially from the morning to the wedding ceremony, that you and your bridal party are staying hydrated, because you're going to be running around, you're going to be doing a lot of things, and alcohol is probably going to be involved at some point, mimosas and stuff like that during the morning. So you want to make sure that, again, food and water, you want to keep yourself nice and hydrated.
I feel like those cups that like measure your water, it's like by noon you want to drink this much, but I feel like those would be a really good bridal party.
I was gonna say, that's a really cute bridal party gift. You give all your bridesmaids that, and you're like, make sure you're staying up to date with those water levels today.
Yeah, good idea.
So stay hydrated. Okay, something people don't always think about for their wedding ceremony is reserved seating signs.
So I was just gonna say there's a lot of places this can go. So reserve signs definitely for your ceremony. That's actually a really big point of having ushers. Everyone always asks me, like, why do you need ushers? Why do you need greeters? Well, because ushers can not only walk people to their seats, even when people don't need walking to their seats, but they can make sure that those seats that are reserved for family stay empty when guests are arriving. But definitely putting reserved seating, even specifically down to the name, is really smart. And that's when before, in the pre-planning, you'll go through with your planner and actually, like, we actually plan each seat, how many seats we need, where everybody's going to be sitting, moms, grandparents, how many rows do we need, because you want to have a specific plan. You don't just want to reserve the first 3 rows on both sides for family, because then if you reserve those 3 rows but you don't really know, you could have 2 whole rows of, like, front rows of your ceremony just empty during your ceremony, and that's not fun either. So getting specific about it, planning it out, having reserved seating signs, and then even as much as adding the names of the people on there, so it makes it really easy. Of course, you'll go through that. We go through that in rehearsal as well, so people know where they're sitting. Like, parents know where to go after they walk down, and grandparents know where they're sitting, but just as an extra precaution for everybody to know.
Yeah, especially if you don't have a planner, if you're not working with a planner, having those, you can even just like print them out, or just having like cute little signs that we offer our brides. But especially if you're having like moms and grandmas walk down the aisle, you don't want friends and family to fill up all the seats and then mom and grandma have nowhere to sit. And again, like she said, you don't want, if you only have a couple people, you don't want 3 rows reserved and you only have like 2 people on each side. So that's just something that a lot of times people don't think about till day of if you don't have a planner. So we're here to tell you to make sure you think about that ahead of time. Okay, something people often forget about until day of is really funny, but is ice. So whether you're having a bar, whether you're just having soft drinks, this is something, if you have a planner, this is something that wouldn't come up. Like, this is something that we think about all the time and build in. And
especially when you use places like here we have Big Red that bartends, and they literally they're a liquor store, so they bring all of the alcohol, and in their package they bring the alcohol, they bring the ice, they bring the garnishes, they bring all of that. But sometimes if you just have outside bartenders, they don't always bring all that stuff and like furnish it all to you.
And if you're doing like a backyard wedding or barbecue or something, if you don't have somebody who's handling the details for you, ice just often really gets forgotten, and people don't think about like how much ice you need. Rule of thumb is like 1 pound per person. And then especially if you're having like an outdoor wedding in the heat of summer, 1.5 pounds, because the sun is going to melt down that ice. So that is just something that we often see people don't think about. If we're doing like day of coordination and stuff, it's something that we catch a lot that people haven't planned.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've actually gone for on ice runs.
Yeah. We always get more ice than needed because it's better to have extra ice, especially if you're having kegs too. That's another thing. People not rent kegs, but like buy kegs, and then they don't get ice. But the liquor store most likely is not going to provide you with ice for the keg. They'll provide you with like a tub for the keg and the keg, but they're not going to provide you with that ice. So you don't want to be scrambling day of the wedding trying to like go to gas stations finding large bags of ice. It is something that you don't get until day of, but you want to be aware of it and know and be prepared of how much you need. Okay, next, something people don't often think about or often forget day of is tips.
We definitely have, as planners, we have a gratuity checklist that we collect envelopes from the couple. We initial that we've received them, and then we have the vendors initial that they've received them when we hand them over, but that can be overlooked. So a couple of days before the wedding, we also have recommended gratuity amounts a couple days before the wedding, and if you have final payments to make, you want to put them in an envelope. You want to make sure you have the vendor's name and business on the front of the envelope. So you could put baker, you could put DJ, and then the name. And if you have a planner coordinator, usually we'll hand them off to those vendors. If you don't, you just want to make sure you designate a person to do that, because you are not going to, 1, want to keep track of the envelopes all day until the vendors are there, and 2, even think about it, you're going to totally space it. So if you don't have a coordinator, put someone in charge of handing out your envelopes.
Bridesmaids, good, mother, especially if your parents are helping with the payments and stuff. A lot of times we get mother of the brides handing out vendor envelopes with tips and stuff. But you definitely don't want to be in charge of that. Like, you want to pass that off to somebody else. If you have a planner, great, they'll do it. If not, definitely find somebody that can just be responsible for that, because you're not going to have the time or even remember to do that while you're like on the dance floor.
Yeah, and then get them done a couple days in advance, because that last day or two before the wedding is chaos.
Yeah, the more you can do a few days leading up to the wedding, the more likely you won't forget things day of. So something people oftentimes forget is vendor meals. It's something that can be built into certain vendors' contracts, but if not, it's also something that, especially if you're having a plated dinner, you want your caterer or venue to know of ahead of time. When you give them your guest count, you have to include those vendor meals.
Yeah, for sure. And so, like I said, if it's plated, you want to include that. Even if it's buffet style, you still want to let the caterers know, just to make sure that there's enough food. The typical vendors that will eat are photographer, videographer, DJ, sometimes like the venue coordinator or venue owner, like whoever's there watching the venue, your coordinator or planner. Hey,
we're there all day with you.
I like food. Who else? Florist is usually not there during the wedding. Sometimes officiants stay afterwards, depending on your relationship with them. So that's a 50-50 shot. And baker doesn't usually stay. So those are the main ones that you want to think about providing a meal. And a lot of times people are like, well, why do we need to provide a meal for those vendors? And it's like, well, those vendors usually, like photographer, videographer, think about it. They've been with you almost all day taking pictures.
Because they start in the morning. They start when you're getting ready. They're there while bridesmaids are getting ready, you're getting your dress on, and you have to think, like, that's an all day.
It's a long time. And yes, they could pack their lunch and bring it, but have you ever seen a photographer and videographer walking around? Do you know how many bags they have on their backs and how many cameras they have on their shoulders? Like, they do not want to try and keep track of lunch or dinner. So it's always just a really nice gesture for, and us too, like, as a planner, we're running around from venue. If it's a separate ceremony reception site, we're running back and forth. We have our emergency kits, we have any decor that we're setting up, we have all these things, so we don't, like, a lot of times I can't even keep track of my phone. That's why I have a watch, because I don't even know where it goes. So imagine me trying to keep track of a meal.
Well, we're there, I would say we're there longer than anybody, because we start first thing in the morning and we go through every
I'd say a typical wedding day for us is like 15 to 18 hours.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy, but that's literally like we usually start about 7 or 8 a.m. depending on the schedule, and usually I don't roll into home until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
We're the first ones there and we're the last ones to leave. We're the ones there that are going to be cleaning up and making sure everything's done. Like she said, you have florists and stuff who will come to the venue, and a lot of times they'll go to the ceremony and they'll put the flowers out, and then sometimes they will come back and move that stuff to the venue, but they don't stay.
They like leave, yeah.
But your photographer, your videographer, especially when people are fed, they're happier and they do better work.
Yeah, and like the DJ, they're DJing
They're
during dinner.
there.
So yeah, so it's always just nice. Like Michelle said, sometimes vendors do put that in their contract, and that, like, we make sure we read through contracts, see what's it's even so far as, like, if you get a band, can you imagine a band oftentimes in their rider, they require like a hot meal and a 15-minute break to go eat, which I mean is smart on their part, but just make sure that you're prepared for that. Make sure you're prepared to include that in your final meal count that you give to your caterer, and yeah, it's always really nice.
So something we offer our couples is emergency kits, and it's something that people don't always think about until they're in a situation where they need something from an emergency kit.
Yeah, and so us as coordinators, we carry a ton of things. We have an episode coming up where we're actually going to go through our emergency kits and show you what we carry around and provide. But there's so many things to consider that you as the bride or the groom or whoever may want to consider making your own emergency kit, especially for those things that can't just be like, they're not for everybody. Like, if you have extra foundation, or if you have some like bra stickies, or extra earring backs, like whatever that unique thing may be that you're just like, oh, I may need that, it's a good idea to put a little emergency kit together to have throughout the day.
And even if you're not working with a planner, it's great if even just think about putting something little together, like a little sewing kit, some safety pins,
Hair ties,
even like wine wipes, or just like little disposable
Like
stain
removers.
removers.
Yeah.
You know, we have the gamut in our, because we build our emergency kit. I think after every wedding we probably add something
Yeah.
because we learn, you know, something else at every wedding.
Yeah.
But we have huge emergency kits. But even if you just have something with like a Band-Aid, you know, Band-Aids and safety pins, just something small that will help you in those last minute situations, that would be very helpful.
Very helpful.
Okay, something you don't want to wait until the last minute to remember is having an overnight bag.
Oh my gosh, imagine that. So you leave the wedding, and where are you going to go? You usually stay in a hotel. Sometimes people go home. Most people stay in a hotel. And so you want to make sure you have that overnight bag that you pack to have all your stuff for the next day. You're probably not going to be feeling the hottest. So make sure you pack that bag. Side note, we plan honeymoons and travel through Sandals. So if you need that service, hit us up. We can plan you an amazing honeymoon. We also do something as planners and as coordinators where we actually have 2 baskets that we carry to weddings, and at the end of the night, anything that you want to go back to your room or in your car or wherever you're going, you put in those baskets. We make sure that it gets into the car. So just think about packing your overnight bag. If you're staying in the hotel that you got ready in, then great, you can leave it in there and it's all ready for you. But you definitely want to make that a priority to remember.
Yeah, and then that's again something that you can designate to somebody, like say you're not getting ready where you're sleeping, you know, having one of your bridesmaids or someone drop it off, or in the car at least, whatever vehicle that you're going to be in. You know, you don't want to show up to the hotel and have nothing for the next day. So remember an overnight bag. Okay, so something that if you're not working with a planner, you really want to consider and think about transportation before you're trying to wrangle a bridal party to and from locations.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about how much travel could be involved in your wedding day. I mean, we see all kinds, but usually you're getting ready in one place, then you have to go. You could have your ceremony in one place and reception in another, so then you have to consider that. If you have them in the same place, you're still going from getting ready to ceremony/reception site, and then at the end of the night, you're going from there to possibly back to where you got ready, possibly not, possibly like a hotel or a different location than that. So that right there is 2-3 transportation trips that you have to think about. And you have to think about, like, if you take one vehicle there, is it still good? Like, if you ride to the ceremony or the reception with, you know, somebody, is that still going to be available at the end of the night? Do you have another plan? All kind of ties into too, like where you're leaving your stuff, like your overnight bag and things like that. So transportation can get kind of sticky.
And you have like Uber, you have Lyft, you have services like that are great nowadays. But if you're not doing like a traditional transportation for the bridal party, you know, a service of some kind, you like, even if your maid of honor drives you to the ceremony, you know, like, is your maid of honor going to drive you to the hotel, or who is she taking home? You just want to make sure, if you're not working with a planner and you don't have established transportation, you know, set up, that everyone is going to get there and going to be able to get from one location to the next, and it's all going to work. Because if you carpool to the reception and then people leave early, like if your bridesmaids drive your grandma, you know, your grandma might not stay till the end of the night. So just think about that and just have that plan done in advance. You don't want to be scrambling last minute, but then there are always services where you can get like a lift back to the hotel for grandma if you need.
Yeah.
Something you definitely don't want to forget about until the day of your wedding is your marriage license.
Now, you probably can get your marriage license the day of your wedding. Will you have time? Probably not. I think regulations here are like you can literally get it the day before or the day of. I think it's 60 days prior. You can go get your marriage license 60 days prior. So if that's something you think you're going to forget about, then go get it 60 days prior. However, if you do that, don't lose it until then. But no, that's majorly important. And also don't forget to sign it because you can get the marriage license, and that's something that gets overlooked because you're so busy right after the ceremony. You go into pictures and you're greeting people and they're pulling you everywhere. And but you definitely don't want to forget to sign your marriage license because it does have to get sent in.
And you want to designate somebody if you don't have a planner, like once again, having a planner, that's something we do and make sure it's all taken care of. But if you're not working with a planner, have a mom or a bridesmaid or somebody be responsible, making sure it gets signed, and then also making sure that it doesn't get lost, because you sign it, you're in the middle of your reception, you're doing a million things, and then it's like, where'd the marriage license go? So give it to somebody who will hold on to it, keep it safe, and then you can file it after.
And a lot of times, if you have an officiant, through like a church or something like that, they will have the marriage license, make sure you sign it. They'll actually take it and mail it off for you afterwards, which is really nice. But even like if your officiant is a family friend or a family member, you just want to make sure that somebody other than the officiant is also just checking up on that.
So something you might not actually think about until your wedding reception is like nearing the end is, what are you going to do with all those gifts?
Yeah. So nowadays you don't have as many like cards, and then Amazon is a popular one where people order beforehand, but you can still get a lot of boxed gifts and even your cards. So we as planners transport, at the end of the night, we pick those up. We either put them in your vehicle, put them in a family member's vehicle, or we transport them like to your hotel room, to your house, to a parent's house, like wherever you need them to go.
We transport them a lot of times to houses at the end of the night.
Yeah, wherever you need them to go. But if you don't have a coordinator or a planner, make sure you designate someone for that, because you're going to get to the end of the night and you are not going to, a lot of times people plan, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to clean up afterwards, we're going to be here for like 2 hours and we're going to clean up and take down decorations, and you are not going to want to do that, believe me.
You also want to make sure that, you have the room. So, if you have your car that's going back to the hotel or back home with you, and it's already full of other things, or you don't have a large vehicle, you want to make sure that there's somebody that can help you and transport those gifts for you. Surprisingly, something that gets forgotten a lot, especially if you don't have a planner, is having a cake knife and server.
How funny is that? Like,
I know.
You have a cake and you forget I actually have one in our emergency kit.
Sometimes people forget like toppers and stuff, but like the cake knife and like that, I've seen.
Like, how do you do it?
Like, people use plastic knives, and or they try and use whatever the caterers have for dinner service, but it's something that people they plan out their cake, they plan out their cake topper, they plan out all this stuff, but they forget, like, what am I going to use to cut this?
Yeah, it's so funny. So make sure you think about that, whether it's personalized or not. A lot of times, even ask your baker, or if your caterer is making your cake, a lot of times they will provide a cake knife and server. Sometimes the venue has one. So if you don't want to purchase one, there's a lot of different options to get one. Just make sure you get it.
Okay, so this one might sound a little weird, but pens. It's something that people do not think about. They have their guest book, they have whatever they want, people to sign, and they don't have pens.
Even like marriage license too. You can like, you want a nice pen for that, but yeah, guest books. And you have to think about like the surface too. So like guest books these days, they can get so unique. So it may not just be a piece of paper or a book or something like that. Maybe you have like Jenga pieces or puzzle pieces or something like that.
Like a Sharpie or something.
Yeah, like something that won't bleed. So you just have to think about one, actually having the pens and how many you need, because you don't just want one, especially if you have like a 200 person 250 person wedding. Like, you don't just want one pen, you want like a package of them. So having them, and then what kind are they, depending on what kind of surface your guest book is.
And this is something we find all the time with our couples, where they'll have their guest book, whether it be a photo album or a picture, a frame that you sign the mat or whatever it is. They will have it, but they won't have anything to sign it with. So we keep a stock of different types of pens and stuff for our couples, but if you're not working with a planner, you don't want to send somebody to run out and get pens like during your reception. And this is also something that we find a lot in like bridal showers, baby showers or stuff, when you have like those games that you want people to play, you need a pen for everybody.
She's saying this because we just had one. We had to get the pens.
You need a pen. So if you're having 30 people at a bridal shower and you want to play some games, you're going to need 30 pens. And it's for some reason, it's just something that gets overlooked. Everyone plans out all the details, but I can't tell you how many times we, even like weddings, like we keep them in our emergency kit because no one ever thinks about pens.
Yeah.
Okay, so most weddings these days have some sort of DIY items involved. And when you're working with planners, we get those, we know where you want them, we put them out, we make sure everything's where it needs to be, we take them down at the end of the night, make sure they get where they need to go. But if you're not working with planners and you have a lot of DIY items for your wedding, you have to figure out who's going to set them up, like where they're going to go, where you want them to be set up, and then where they're going to come at the end of the night, who's going to tear them down, who is going to put them in their vehicle or your vehicle. There's a lot of little DIY things that can happen these days that, you need to make sure that you have somebody who can put them out and take them back for you.
So especially when you're doing DIY items, you don't realize that the amount of stuff that comes in multiplies when it's coming out. And that is a lot of times just due to organizing it when it's going out, but making sure you have the right amount of vehicle space or multiple vehicles to take it. That's really important too, because it really, seriously, it's like nothing ever goes back in the package the way it came out. So.
Especially if you're setting up a day before or something, you get there, you set everything up, and then you forget that night, there's so much that needs to come back. So, working with a planner is definitely...
We the bomb.
That is one thing that couples really like, is that we kind of take care of it all. We collect it beforehand. So you don't even have to worry about it. We bring it to the ceremony, we bring it to the venue, the reception, whatever, and we take it all out. So that's just another bonus of having a planner. But if you don't, make sure that you or somebody else is going to be responsible for all those. Okay, last but not least is going to be cleanup and trash and getting rid of everything at the end of the night, because you think you're going to have 200 people that are going to stay there and help you clean up.
To. So a lot of times, whoever's your caterer, a lot of times will take out the trash, be responsible for that kind of cleanup. They'll clean up the trash off your tables. They'll take plates, things like that. But what you have to think about is you've been getting hair and makeup done since 8 a.m. and if you're not ending till 10 p.m. and you think it all sounds good, it's we're young, we're gonna stay after, we're gonna clean up for an hour, and it is just you get there and you're why did we do this to ourselves? So definitely just thinking about that cleanup, especially with stuff that is not rented, stuff that's yours that you provided, that all has to be packed up. Most venues also make you have things out that night, especially in COVID times, because we're having back-to-back weddings, because of the postponements and stuff. We have to have Friday weddings, Saturday weddings, Sunday weddings, so you can't always leave your stuff overnight because they have to flip that, clean that, and get it ready for the next wedding the next day. So packing all that stuff up and then getting it in a vehicle, wherever it's going to go, you want to designate somebody for that. I highly, highly, highly recommend, even if you don't have a coordinator, hiring somebody for cleanup and packing up, because you are not going to want to stay, and neither is your family.
That's one thing. I think that's one things that our couples are the most happy about at the end of the night, is they get to go home. Okay, they get to leave, they get to go to an after party, they get to go to the hotel, they get to go,
anywhere but there.
Anywhere. But you have to think about it when you're having a wedding at a venue, it's full on fabulous, and then at the end of the night it has to be empty. So aside from sweeping and mopping, most venues don't require you to mop, but a lot of them require you to sweep up. But you have to think about all your linens. Those are probably rented. Those need to be taken down and put in bags ready to go back. All the flowers, you can give as many flowers away as you want, but it's not gonna, usually all the flowers aren't gonna go anywhere. And a lot of times we have huge garlands and stuff, and you've got to clean all that up. Candles, table numbers, it's just a lot. People don't think about it. They think, oh yeah, we'll end it at 10:30 and we'll clean up from 10:30 to 11. You're like she said, you have sometimes caterers will bus tables and things like that. A lot of times we do that. As the night is ending, we start just clearing the trash. We start clearing the empty glasses and plates. We'll start collecting some of the decor items and pulling it together, but it doesn't happen easy peasy. Like she said earlier, we're usually not home till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, because we are the last ones to leave. We are throwing out all your trash in the dumpsters and making sure the venue is left spotless, because if not, you're going to get fined or have an extra charge. But it's definitely something, if you're not working with planners, that is something you really, really, really need to consider, is having designated people that are going to stay and help you clean up. Like, we've had weddings where sometimes like the mom and dad and like the bride and groom will stay and help, pull down things, especially if you have a lot of decor. That's something that we do. Like, if we put up draping and lights, we're going to take down those draping and lights. So, we're there until it's over, until everything is done. But if you're having things done, you have to remember that they have to come down.
What goes up must come down.
Must come down. Okay, guys, we hope those tips help you just to remember things before you get there and it's last minute. We want to make sure that you are prepared and ready. So if you're not working with a planner, or you are working with a planner, those are just things that are really, really important to make sure that you don't forget about until the day of your event.
So important.
Thanks for joining us. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify, Google Play, Facebook, Instagram. We're everywhere. If you have questions, let us know.
If you have an idea for an episode, something you want to hear about, drop us a note. We would love to make these episodes helpful for you, things that you want to hear about, want to know about. So drop us a line, let us know.
And we will see you guys soon.